A taxi demonstration brought gridlock around Parliament. There's not much progress inside either. This week had been billed as high noon, a moment of reckoning. It's another week of delay and tumbleweed.
The number of important weeks that we've had that then turned out to be total damp squibs, and I fear that this one may be something of a damp squib.
Normally, the last few weeks have been typified by, I would have had 4 calls from the Whip's office on a Sunday. I haven't had any this weekend, which almost worries me that it's all gone a little bit quiet.
The EU insists there are no negotiations going on in Brussels either. They say they're waiting for UK proposals. The biggest development was another moment in the unlikely political courtship between Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn. A letter from her to him engaging with his Brexit plan, outlined in a letter to her last week. The detail in these letters and the civility on display, not something you normally see between the two leaders. Dear Jeremy, I'm grateful for this, thank you for that. All of this can deceive. Theresa May wants to appear open to cross-party dialogue, but she also wants to terrify some of her recalcitrant MPs, show them you could have Jeremy Corbyn's version of Brexit if you don't vote for mine. And as for Jeremy Corbyn, some close to him say they think the chances of him actually voting for Theresa May's version of Brexit is about 0.1%. He's all about showing that he is truly involved in the process. Some close to him think his plummeting personal poll ratings have been a lot to do with the fact voters think he's not actually engaged in Brexit. In the end, she's probably still pursuing the same deal, isn't she? These other tracks are about either sweetening people in her own party or frightening them by being seen to be talking to Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think that she's stated many times her discomfort around the proposals that Jeremy Corbyn is making. So I'd be very surprised if she was suddenly come down on the side of those sort of customs union-based proposals and at the same time risk the relationship with her own colleagues.
I don't think that there's any mileage for the Prime Minister or for the government in trying to do a deal with Labour, because they will just try to trap Theresa May. They will just try to do a deal that is toxic and that has disastrous effects for the Conservative Party.
Well, Boris Johnson was pushing back against Jeremy Corbyn's call for membership of the customs union. Some of those backbench Labour MPs Theresa May has been wooing in private to back her deal say she must dial down the anti-customs union rhetoric.
The thing that's missing right now is any level of trust that she actually means what she says. The difficulty is that we go into those meetings and have discussions with her about protecting workers' rights, about giving Parliament a role in what comes next, about potentially exploring arrangements for a permanent customs union, and she nods and smiles, and then Tory MPs go in and say we want to tear all of that up, and she nods and smiles, and she seems to believe that we don't talk to one another.
The International Trade Secretary signed a temporary trade deal with Switzerland, so there's something in place if Britain leaves the EU without a deal. There are many more of these still to sign, with time running out. The reason MPs like Nick Bowles insist they will come back with an amendment trying to force the government to ban no deal. Just not yet.
By the end of February, we're hopeful that there will be a clear majority of MPs who will be willing, even sometimes at the cost of their own jobs, to back a process of ensuring that we ask for a short extension to be able to come up with a compromise deal. I don't believe that this week a sufficient number of MPs are willing to take that step.
Malta's Prime Minister visited Downing Street this evening. Theresa May will tell MPs in a statement tomorrow why they should be patient and wait for her Plan B to take shape, with only 46 days left to the Brexit date.
Well, with me now are 2 Labour MPs, Angela Smith, who supports a second referendum and tried to deliver a petition to Labour HQ to that effect earlier today, only to be turned away, and John Mann, who supported the Prime Minister's deal in the January vote. Angela Smith first. I mean, the fact that you were turned away from your own party headquarters with this petition to support a second referendum, it's time to acknowledge, isn't it, that a second vote is dead?
Well, I mean, it's beginning to look that way, and I think there will be thousands of Labour members and voters who will feel very disheartened by the turn of events today. I mean, last week, the letter, And we now know that Keir's paragraph was excluded, the paragraph in which the people's vote was, mentioned. And now today, with my petition turned away by party headquarters.
So Jeremy Corbyn's too busy sort of sending nice letters to Theresa May to entertain
it seems so, and pursuing what I think is a fantasy deal which isn't going to materialise.
Right, well, John Mann, you're backing that fantasy deal. Are you being honest with your constituents that any Brexit will make them poorer and that you and Jeremy Corbyn are facilitating that?
I'm very, very honest with my constituents in saying this is what you voted for. Here's the issues. Here's not the issues.
So even if it makes you poorer, you're delivering it?
No, I don't think it will make them poorer. What I've made clear is that a no deal will have lots of problems that they need to be aware of. And those problems will be quite large, especially in the short term. And so the option of no deal does have a lot of immediate consequences.
Angela Smith, Brexit's not going to make them poorer?
But John, I mean, you and I agree on most things, but on this, I'm afraid we can't, because all the economic analysis shows it will make us poorer. So any funding that Theresa May offers in return for getting her deal over the line will not compensate for the money that's lost to the economy as a consequence of Brexit. Even the best possible deal will see us losing economic growth.
The economic forecasts are that they're guesses into the future, and they're about what the level. They're about
the best we've got.
They're about what the levels of growth will be, and whether growth will be higher with this route or with that route. So it's about growth into the future, right? People know what they voted for, and in areas like mine, people will say, "Well, hang on a minute, we ain't got a lot to begin with." But having that democracy back is very, very important to people, and it's seen as a value by people. So, I fully accept that you've been totally consistent in calling for a second referendum.
Yeah.
The illogic in your argument and the people's vote is you seem to think that the public's changed their view. I've seen no evidence of that at all. A second referendum would be the same result.
Well, let me pick up on that. I mean, isn't it time for a bit of realism? Let me just put to you what the EU official Sabine Vejan said. Cakeism is found on Remain side as well as Leave. Yeah. The chances for a reversal of Brexit are non-existent.
Well,
do you accept that?
I mean, for me, it's a principle. The people's vote is a principle. I mean, it seriously is, because...
But isn't it time now, when you've only got a few weeks until Brexit actually happens, to put those principles to one side and try and compromise?
Time for some leadership. If Theresa May knows full well that if she were to agree to a second referendum, a final say, a ratification of the deal that she's offering the people, by the people, then people like me, MPs like me, would vote for it. I would vote for her deal, help to get it over the line, if she agrees to put it to the people for ratification. I think
isn't that worth compromising on?
It's not needed. I mean, the question could be no deal versus going back in. So there's different variations of the question. What I'm hearing and what I want to see is let's get on with it. There is a deal. The deal can be improved.
How many Labour MPs are in the same camp as you who would help Theresa May get this deal over the line?
Someone gave a figure today of 40 to 60. I don't think that's an unreasonable guesstimate. But the deal needs improving. And, I mean, if Jeremy Corbyn whips in favour of the deal, it'll get through by a very large majority. But I'm not sure that's going to happen. But the coming together of the Corbyn agenda and the May agenda, he put 5 points forward. She's accepted 3.5 of them, and that's straight away. That's a lot of movement over the weekend.
But I think what would make life a lot easier for all of us, John, is if we accepted the principle that whatever the deal is that Parliament agrees to in the end goes back to the people for ratification. That's a very sound principle. And whatever the deal is.
And Angela Smith's made quite a few concessions tonight.
And people who support no deal, like Boris Johnson, and people like Angela, can vote together for entirely opposite reasons against a deal. That doesn't take us any... What would happen next? And if that went through, no one can then answer what would happen next. So the country would be back in the mess. What I want to see is bringing the country together to move forward. We've got a democracy. Let's use it.
Very briefly, I mean, you could see the divisions between the two of you. Have you had any discussions, Angela Smith, about joining a new centrist party, yes or no?
No. I mean, what I will say is I think MPs are being pushed, Labour MPs are being pushed to the very edge by the attitude of the leadership on key issues such as Brexit, anti-Semitism, where John and I are absolutely as one.